The first general principles on which criminal jurisdiction is exercised is the Territorial Principle. Under this principle, we looked at where the crime took place. If the crime is committed in Malaysia, then Malaysia will have the jurisdiction. If the crime happens in Thailand, then Thailand will have jurisdiction. So it's easy peasy, right? Okay. Let's see what happened in this case. If there is a plane which is traveling from London to maybe New York. New York is in the US and London is in the UK. So while it was traveling, 30 minutes flying, it exploded and it fall and crashed into Scotland. Scotland is also under the UK. So who will have the jurisdiction here? You have to consider that in this flight there's a lot of Americans because they're going to New York for their Christmas holiday. Many of them died, and it also affected 11 people on the ground in Scotland. Further news says that the terrorist who bombed this plane is from Libya. So who will have the jurisdiction in this case? Is it Libya, United States, or UK? So if we looked at Territorial Principle, we look at where this event took place. So since it took place on the air and it crashed in Scotland, which is within the UK jurisdiction, then the UK will have the jurisdiction in this matter. Once UK have jurisdiction in this matter, that means UK will have different kinds of power on that case. It has the power to make law. UK have jurisdiction, enforcement jurisdiction, where UK can ask its policemen to investigate the matter, and the UK can also use its judicial power, meaning that the matter can be tried in the UK courts. What happens if the offense takes place in more than one state? For example, there's a person here who shoot another person at another place. So this person is in Malaysia and the other person is in Thailand because they are sitting at the border. So they get into a fight and the Malaysian person shoot another person in Thailand. So which country will have the jurisdiction? So in this case, the Territorial Principle have two sub-principles. The first subjective Territorial Principle, they will look at where the offense starts. So if they look at the subjective Territorial Principle, Malaysia will have the jurisdiction because the gun was fired in Malaysia. They refer to objective Territorial Principle, then Thailand will have the jurisdiction since the offense was completed and had effect in Thailand. Both states will also have concurrent jurisdiction. Concurrent means both states will have the jurisdiction because Malaysia can claim that they have jurisdiction based on the subjective Territorial Principle, while Thailand also can say that Thailand have jurisdiction because the crime was completed and had its effect in Thailand. Now let's look at another case example about Territorial Principle. In Tracy versus Director of Public Prosecutions in 1970, Tracy have written a letter. Okay, this letter was written in the UK. So he sent the letter to Mrs. X in Germany. Okay, but it's not a love letter, but the letter is demanding money with menaces. So which country should have the jurisdiction now? Is it the UK or Germany? In this case, the UK claimed jurisdiction because, see, England and Wales. He says that they based it on the subjective territorial principles because the writing of the letter was performed in the UK. So when they use the subjective territorial principles, UK will have the jurisdiction, although the effect of the letter is in Germany. When we talk about nationality principle, normally we looked at the person or who is involved in the crime. Okay, if the person is from Malaysia, then Malaysia will have the jurisdiction over that person because that person is the citizen. Being a person or individual, we have both rights and obligations. Okay, we have the rights to our education, the rights to have an IC, the right to be protected by the state. But when we have rights, we also have duties. Duties to follow the Malaysian law, for example. So, whenever we go to travel, we committed serious crimes. So, Malaysia being our country, who have jurisdiction upon us, have the right to try us. Serious crimes normally refers to claims as to treason, when you murder someone or you commit bigamy. How do countries decide who are their nationals? In the concept of jus sanguinis, it depends on who are your parents. If your parents are from Malaysia, then you are automatically a Malaysian citizen. And another concept is jus soli, where if you were born in Malaysia, then you are automatically a Malaysian citizen. But what happens if you don't like to be a Malaysian? You want to be a Canadian, for example. If you don't want to have Malaysian citizen, you want to be a Canadian nationals, you can also change your citizenship in different ways. Canada can regard you as their nationals if you marry someone from Canada and then you apply to be a Canadian. In another way is you can go through naturalization. Example, if you study in Canada for years and years and years and you love that country so much, and then you work in Canada and you learn French and you know their culture, and you fulfill their conditions to be Canadian, and then you apply, then maybe Canada can regard you as their national. An example where you can use nationality principle, helping the ISIS or Islamic jihadis to fight in Syria. Malaysia, as your country, can ask you to return home and maybe bring you to court or charge you or do anything because you are Malaysian citizen. Okay, as you can see here, there's 20 Malaysians remain in Syria, crumbling Islamic State Caliph. Others are seeking to return home. So what will happen is, if you are part of the ISIS group, so Malaysia have the jurisdiction to maybe try you, or they can enforce Malaysian rule against you. Another principle is the passive personality principle. This principle gives the jurisdiction for the states on the basis that the nationality of the actual or potential victim. A good case to explain is the Cutting case 1887. In the Cutting case, there's one American citizen. His name is Cutting. Cutting have written a public news about an important person in Mexico. So when he wrote this news, not everybody is happy about it. So some of the copies went to Mexico, and the citizen of Mexico also read the news. Then, interestingly, Mr. Cutting then went to Mexico for a holiday. When he went there, of course, he was arrested by the Mexican policeman. The issue here is whether Mexico is entitled to apply their jurisdiction, because the news was in the US and everything was done in the US. So the Mexico used the passive personality principle, saying that they have the jurisdiction. Under the protective or security principle, state can claim jurisdiction over offences if the offences or the crime is committed elsewhere, not within its state. For example, if we are in Malaysia, but Malaysia thinks that elsewhere somebody or someone is doing things which are injurious to Malaysian security, making plans to affect Malaysian economy, will affect Malaysian integrity. So these kind of offences, although it's done elsewhere, can come under Malaysian jurisdiction under the protective or security principle. It is for the purpose of protecting the state's vital interests, since the alien meaning the foreigner or the people which is not from Malaysia, they might not be committing an offence under the law of Malaysia. Under this protective security principle, Malaysia will have jurisdiction. For example, in the case of Joyce versus DPP, there's one American citizen. He has a British passport. Then there's a war between Britain and Germany. He's delivering talks which is injurious to the British integrity. So in this case, the British claim to have jurisdiction over this person.